Most people think estate planning falls apart because something was too complicated. That's not what I see. What I see are families walking into my office after someone has already passed on, thinking everything was handled, only to find out that the plan they were given didn't actually protect anything. The documents looked official, the advice sounded confident, but when it mattered most, the plan failed because no one ever stepped back and asked the bigger question, like we do: what are we actually trying to accomplish here? And the part that should make you uncomfortable is this: most of the time, it didn't fail because the situation was too complex. It failed because the attorney never went deep enough to see the simple solution sitting right in front of them. I worked with a family where the mother had an adult daughter with special needs. Years earlier, the family had done some planning, but it was piecemeal. At the recommendation of a financial advisor, they had created an irrevocable trust to hold a life insurance policy for the daughter's benefit. That part was done correctly, but they never came back to build the rest of the plan around it. Fast forward a few years, the father has passed on, and now the son was starting to get more involved at his mother's request. That's when they came into my office and we started looking at everything as a whole instead of isolated pieces. The mother's biggest concern was straightforward but incredibly important. She wanted her daughter to have a place to live, but she was worried about doing anything that might interfere with the benefits her daughter would be getting or could be getting in the future. At the same time, she wanted to make sure whatever she left behind was protected and managed responsibly. When we first started working through the options, it looked complicated. We talked through different types of irrevocable trusts, potential tax implications, benefit eligibility concerns, and several more aggressive planning strategies that, on paper, could have worked. The deeper we went, the more it started to feel like one of those situations where the solutions were becoming more complex than the problem itself. But then we stepped back and we looked at what she actually wanted to accomplish. She wanted her daughter to have a home. She wanted that home protected. She wanted someone responsible managing things after she was gone. She didn't want unnecessary taxes, and she didn't want to create unnecessary risk to her daughter's benefits. The solution ended up being simple. She purchased the home in the name of a revocable living trust. During her lifetime, the daughter could live there without any issue because it was still mom's property in her trust. And after mom's death, the home would remain in the trust for the daughter's use, with her son serving as the trustee to manage it. And should the house eventually need to be sold, it would get a stepped up tax basis as of the date of mom's death. That one decision tied everything together. It worked alongside the life insurance trust that was already in place. It protected the daughter. It avoided unnecessary complexity, and it accomplished exactly what the client wanted without over-engineering the plan. No irrevocable trusts needed, no complex corporate structures, no complicated loans or notes, just a straightforward revocable living trust with the usual protective provisions that we put in for the beneficiaries. It's always there. What started as something that looked complicated ended with clear, practical solutions. Listen up, bro. You see this guy out here telling people to avoid probate with trust, beneficiary planning, and quote, proper estate administration? Yeah, that's a problem. Because if families stop going through probate, what happens to the hardworking probate attorneys of America? What happens to the gym memberships, bro? Custom protein shakes aren't cheap. Neither are spray tans or leased luxury SUVs with monthly payments that would financially destroy most people. You think gains happen for free? They happen because somebody's estate got stuck in court for 18 months. That's the American dream. These trust people want families getting access to assets quickly. They want privacy, efficiency, smooth administration. It's disgusting. Real Americans leave behind mystery bank accounts, unsigned documents, and 3 different handwritten wills found in random drawers. That creates jobs, bro. So don't listen to this guy telling you to avoid probate. Without probate, who's gonna pay for these gains? Probate. Keeping probate attorneys employed since forever, bro. But only because we took the time to actually understand the goal instead of forcing the situation into a template. That story is exactly why the answer to why should we hire you is very different from what most people expect. The first reason is that a lot of other attorneys are not really doing estate planning in a meaningful way. They're selling documents. Estate planning is treated as a side practice, and the work becomes fill in the blanks on a pre-built templates instead of thinking through what is actually possible. That approach can produce documents, but it rarely produces a plan that is tailored to the real concerns of the client. When you take the time to listen and think creatively, you start finding solutions that most people don't even realize are available. That's where my firm excels. The second reason is communication. If you don't understand your plan, it's not a good plan. I've seen too many situations where clients were given technically correct advice, but delivered in a way that made no sense to them. They walked away thinking everything was handled, when in reality they didn't fully understand what they had or why it mattered. Speaking in plain English is not a marketing slogan. It's a necessity if you expect people to make informed decisions about something this important. The third reason is process. Estate planning done in one or two rushed meetings is either going to be overwhelming or incomplete. Over time, we've built a structured process that walks clients through this step by step, allowing them to absorb the information, ask questions, and actually understand what they're doing. At the same time, that process leaves room for deeper discussion when needed, supported by tools and videos that explain the most common issues so clients aren't starting from scratch every time we meet. The fourth reason is how we handle pricing. People want certainty and they don't want to feel like they're being charged every time they ask a question. Many attorneys bill by the hour, and even flat fee arrangements are often structured around the documents themselves rather than the thinking behind them. We use flat rate pricing as much as possible, but we don't quote prices up front because until we understand your situation, any number we give you is just a guess. Sometimes what looks complicated ends up being simple, and sometimes what looks simple requires more protection. The only way to get that right is doing the strategy work first and then pricing accordingly. That's why we always do an estate strategy session, run through the goals and techniques, and at the end, provide a flat rate quote for the work we discussed. After that, we want our clients to ask as many questions as they need to in order to understand their plan. And finally, I will tell you when something is a bad idea. There are plenty of things in estate planning that are technically allowed but create problems in the real world. Naming all of your children as co-trustees sounds fair until no one can agree on anything and everything grinds to a halt. Relying on beneficiary designations instead of a coordinated trust plan sounds simple until you realize every change requires updating multiple accounts and one missed form can undo the entire plan. My job is not just to give you options, it's to guide you towards decisions that will actually work. If you want to understand how this works before you ever sit down with an attorney, check out our free materials at freetrustcourse.com. That, of course, is one of the tools I use with my clients, and going through it is actually a required part of our process. It gives you a clear, plain English foundation so that when we do meet, we're not wasting our time on the basics. We can focus on your specific goals and make that first meeting as productive as possible. And as I always tell my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life, and whatever you do, make it a great day.